from Diane, and she's asking any email tips for Black Friday. Diane, today is Wednesday. I think Black Friday is happening on Friday, so it's a bit too late for this. But nevertheless, I think for the sake of everyone and yourself included, if you haven't done anything. So here's my experience working with a couple of e-com clients, right? I don't do that many. Um, and it's only started. So, over time, once I get more experience, I'll share more information. But I'm sharing what I know now. Okay. One is, let me see, what do you have? Okay. There's always this debate between graphic versus text, right? In terms of emails, right? Should I send emails, which is a lot of images and all those things, or should I send, text-based email? Now, for e-commerce, I would recommend that you use both. Now, for graphics, it's pretty obvious, right? E-commerce, you are selling products. Very rare. I mean, you sell services. So especially for Black Friday, it's products. Okay, so your graphics is important because you want to feature your hero products. Right? You can say how great it is and describe it in text, but nothing beats having a picture of your product in your email. So in this case, graphics would be graphics are heavy kind of emails would be the preferred path. Okay, and then text. So in terms of so-called ratio, I would suggest between 80 and 20. Okay, so you want to mix it up. So maybe 3 or 4 emails that you send initially will be in graphics emails, and then maybe the balance, in between, you can switch between text email. Now, the reason why we use text, because it helps in helps in the deliverability because it's pure text. Now, the second thing I realize is certain so-called inbox providers, right, like Gmail and all those things. Now, certain inbox providers, for example, they tend to so-called hide your images, especially if you're not sending to their users that often. Okay, so very likely then, no matter how great or how beautiful is your graphic emails, very likely, unless if they press that button that to show image, for example, they will not be shown. So it's very important when you do graphical image or graphical emails is to have the alternate text for each and every one of your image block. All right. So in text, it's just text. So in terms of opening or basically showing the emails, it is definitely better than graphics. So what you want to do is you want to then balance off, do 80% or maybe 20 or 70, 30, for example, so that some of them, if they do not see the graphic emails and then will receive the text emails, you can still link them back to your store. Okay. So that's one thing. Second thing is you obviously, most of my clients are running on Shopify, right? I don't have much experience on the other platforms, right? So what I do know is, and most of them either choose between these two. Okay, these are what you call e-com dedicated email service providers. So what the difference between this and, for example, like MailerLite, which I use, or even Tanos Smiley, for example, they are for content creators, mostly, although they have templates for graphics and all those things, but it's more designed towards, text heavy kind of senders. Whereas in terms of Omnisend and Klaviyo, they are more designed or skewed towards e-com. So what they have is they have so-called e-commerce flows or email flows, which is related to e-com, for example, like your abandoned carts, your browser abandonment, and all those things. You can obviously build that in your Smiley or even your MailerLite, but you could do it manually. Whereas in these two platforms that I work with, all right, or that my clients has, they already have this, and all you need to do is adjust the timing, for example, and put in the content of your email. So the flows are available, so it's faster that way. Okay, so generally these are two, and you got to make sure that whatever email service providers that you use, it must be back-end connected to Shopify. So you need to check. I think MailChimp used to be connected or able to have this API connection to Shopify. I don't know whether that's been changed. At what point they opted out from connecting with Shopify. I don't know what has changed since. So you go to, if you have a Shopify store, you then go to I think, the marketplace where you can look at ESPs that already have built-in API connection to Shopify. And the reason why you need that is because whenever customer comes in or make a purchase, for example, and when they enter their email address, this information would then flow to your ESPs. And from there, you can then build up your email list, obviously, and then you can then build up, send your emails and do all the stuff like your abandoned carts and all those things. Okay, so these are the two, Diane. And then the third thing is, now, the reason, one of the benefit when you integrate to Shopify, for example, you can then segment based on the products that the users, or so-called your shoppers, for example, may go. And then you can also do stuff like, for example, browsing. Now, that means, for example, let's say, but this has to happen if the particular user, let's say myself, have signed up for so-called the email list, right? So what it does is, there's this little cookie that is plugged within your browser. So whenever I visit a store, and for example, if I select or basically browse through certain items, because you're registered, okay, that means I already have your email address. I can then set a trigger to the ESPs, for example, to send a follow-up email, maybe an hour or 2 hours later, and say, "Hey, Andrew, you just browse this item, so you be interested to, know more, or would you like to buy," and all those things. So that's what the term they use is browse abandonment. Okay, which means just browsing. It's not add to cart yet. All right. So these are the little stuff that this so-called e-commerce related ESPs allows you to do. Okay. So that's one thing that you need to be aware of. So, okay, let me just change. Let me just clear this. Where am I? Uh, okay. Let's clear this. Just a minute. Okay, so you're done with this. What else do we have? Oh, okay. So the key flows, emails flows that you need to have is, number one is obviously abandoned cart. This is must have, because stats have said that about 70% of people who um, browse actually, abandon their carts, right? Or 70% of shoppers actually abandon their carts, right? So this is a very big number that you want to recover the sales. So when you have abandoned carts, you then remind them maybe every 1 day or 2 days, for example, because there's always this, when you're shopping, there are interruption, or maybe sometimes your credit card may not work, for example, or you may not have the credit card with you, for example, and then you get distracted and you forget about it, right? So these are the important email recovery that you can use, because it costs you very little, rather than running ads, for example. Obviously, you can run retargeting ads, but that costs money, all right? A lot more compared to if you run an email abandoned cart. So you need to have this. Number two is, like I mentioned, your browse abandonment. That's something cool to have, right? So if they browse something and they shown interest, for example, you could either segment them. Remember, browse abandonment works if only the users already pre-registered their address. So when you do that, how can you actually collect this address? Is when you have your pop-up, right, where you invite them into, let's say, sign up for your newsletter, for example, or sign up as your VIP subscribers whatsoever. So when you have this, and then obviously in exchange, you may give them a 10% off coupon, or first time buyer 20% off, whatever it is, to entice them to give your email address in exchange for the freebies that you offer. Okay, so this is how you grow your email list with regards to ecom. Okay, and the other one is your thank you page. Now, it's not your typical thank you page that you will probably expect. But what you can do with your thank you page is you can then offer upsells. Okay, so let's say if I buy one item, and when I conclude the transaction, it gets to the thank you page. You can then propose or offer them other items that is related or complementary to whatever they are purchasing, for example, and that's how you can increase your LTV, right? Or either your LTV or some call it your, what do you call it, the card, um, what was this, card value, right? So you increase your cart value, right? So if, instead of, let's say, an item costs $70, and then you then upsell them to something of another $100, so your cart value has increased from 70 to 170. So this is how you can increase your sales. Okay, Diane. So tips for Black Friday: obviously, you need to segment your users. You can segment them earlier once you integrate to your Shopify store. You can segment them based on their browse habits or the products that they look at. You can then obviously do the four, I call it the four bigs, which is your abandoned cart, your browse, and then, for example, even your pop-ups to grow your emails, and then obviously your thank you page. All right. What else? Email tips. Okay. Then do a mix between graphics, heavy email, and text, right? Text email guarantees you in terms of deliverability or email opens, for example, whereas graphics is important because you want to feature your hero products. And then I think the previous, I can't remember which segment I talked about how you can actually minimize so-called the mail being truncated by Google, right? That's the size of the mail. You cannot exceed 102 kilobyte in terms of the email size, and how you can watch, how you can actually make sure your graphics email will still show up and not be truncated. So look back, I think it's episode 20 or 30, so around there, right? Go back and then have a look at it, how you can actually do that. Okay. So that's what else you need to do. Now it's a bit too late because it's too tight, but generally speaking, you can start sending emails 2 weeks. What I would recommend is between 1 to 2 weeks before Black Friday and Cyber Monday, to build up the relationship, also to build up their for them to remember you, for example, especially if you have not sent emails that often, right? So once you build up that, then during the BFCM week, then if you can, um, because it's about what 5 days, you can do about 1 week campaign. You can do send daily emails for a week. Okay, and then you taper off and then go back to your normal weekly or twice a week email send after at the end of the BFCM campaign, right? So that's how you should do it. And because you're competing with a lot of others, if you look at your email inbox, for example, you probably, if you've subscribed to other e-commerce sites, you'll probably be seeing a lot of emails coming in now. Okay, and oh, one more thing, timers. Right? So if, for example, 2 days before or 2 days before Black Friday closes, for example, that's where you deploy timers, right? So timers is the emails that you use, not emails, but it's a service where it counts down to, to the last day, and it creates that element of urgency for your users. Now, I would recommend that you use timers maybe 3 days before at most, right? Before the end of BFCM, because anything earlier, general human beings is, there's still time. And so there's no urgency. So 3 days, 2 days, or 1 day before, those emails should have timers, because it increases you can call it FOMO, but generally increases the urgency because now they know they have X amount of time left before making a decision to buy. And it definitely helps in terms of conversions, but don't drag it too far early, right? Too early upfront, but make it as close as possible to the closing date. Then you add timers to your emails. Okay, so Diane, I hope that helps. Hi, and thanks for watching. If you need my help to set up your email marketing engine for your business, just click on the link here and you see a list of services that will help you grow your leads and sales and also increase your profits through emails. I'm looking forward to working with you soon.